Good afternoon. My name is Paige Noble Lucas, and I will take you through my service learning project that I completed through the Idaho Animal Rescue Network nonprofit organization, with a brief description of their organization, mission, and purpose, the project I completed for their organization, what I have learned about managing nonprofits in general through my experience this semester, and some key recommendations I have developed for my nonprofit that would benefit and help the efficiency of their organization. My service learning project was conducted through the Idaho Animal Rescue Network, which is a local 501c3 nonprofit organization situated in Lewiston, Idaho, that was officially established in 2019 and founded by Jenna Redhart. However, they did unofficially start practices in 2018. This organization is a volunteer-based nonprofit with currently 125 volunteers that specializes in rescuing animals from cruelty and neglect while advocating for better animal welfare across Idaho. They primarily help dogs and cats, but are not limited to helping just these animals, and nurture them to a healthy state before they can be adopted into a loving home. Before they can be adopted, they ensure that the animals receive the appropriate vaccinations, microchipping, spay and neutering, and exams. Otherwise, these animals cannot legally be adopted. They also help low-income families in need of support that own animals while providing animal food for them, as they have food banks available to them if needed. The Idaho Animal Rescue Network are based in Idaho. However, they also help neglected animals in the Eastern Washington area and provide services and programs that include advocacy for prevention of animal cruelty, sheltering, veterinary care, networking, and fundraising events. My service learning project for the Idaho Animal Rescue Network organization was to input data into their database called Pawlytics, which went up and running at the start of 2025. They had a lot of paperwork due to volunteer applications, adoption applications, and important information regarding the animals that needed to be entered into the database dating back the last 4 years. So my service learning project that would provide valuable help to this organization was to enter all the data for the microchipping of the animals into the database, as well as their intake date into Idaho Animal Rescue Network's care, date of birth, type of animal, and their breed by either updating their current files or creating a new file if they were not in the system yet. They will keep the paperwork on file still. However, the purpose of having myself enter it all into the system was so that it is all organized into one online database that is easily accessible for the organization if needed. I also attended an adoption event during my project timeline where some of the animals were taken to our local Petco and were available to be adopted to shoppers attending Petco or anyone who came to the event. It was nice to see the animals getting lots of love and attention as they deserved. What I have learned about managing nonprofits through my experience with Idaho Animal Rescue Network is that they focus on the mission of the organization, as that emphasizes the goal and purpose of the nonprofit. The purpose of the nonprofit is based off the mission statement, and the practices within the organization should focus and prioritize practices according to that mission. In order to manage the nonprofits efficiently and effectively, they need to remain financially stable, especially considering nonprofits have minimal funding and financial resources available to them. Therefore, securing donations through consistent fundraising events and eligible grants is very important to remain financially viable, as well as ensuring that the organization is keeping the financial accounts stable and making sure that they are not overspending. Nonprofits like the Idaho Animal Rescue Network are predominantly volunteer-based as well. Therefore, getting exposure and awareness in promoting the nonprofit is important in getting volunteers. Also, if the nonprofits is volunteer-based, they need to make sure they have availability for those volunteers and a schedule to limit having minimal help when needed or having too many volunteers at once. There should be a schedule that allows there to be volunteers at most or all times that works with the volunteer schedules and the nonprofit. Managing nonprofits requires strategic planning that sets goals around the mission of the organization, analyzing the environment to meet needs and obtain those desired goals, developing strategies that enhances the efficiency of the nonprofit, and providing awareness to the community, and creating an action plan to achieve short-term and long-term goals and objectives. Action plans will outline measurable and specific tactics or strategies that will achieve the strategic goals by understanding the what, who, when, and why of these action plans that will positively affect the community and nonprofit. The leadership within the organization involves providing guidance to volunteers, employees, if any, and resources that share the same vision and support the mission of the organization to create a meaningful and positive impact in the community, such as social, environmental, or community development, without profit being the sole goal or aim. Having strong leadership requires a mixture of skills, ranging from communication skills, strong strategic planning, putting the organization as priority, financial management, and being a leader who is able to be inspirational and motivate those around them. I developed some recommendations that I can see will be beneficial for Idaho Animal Rescue Network with regards to how the organization can be managed and governed. Some recommendations that I determined would be beneficial for how the organization can be governed is to implement a recording system rather than writing notes during board meetings. They can implement this software to record the documents and notes at meetings, which helps save time rather than writing everything down and keeping everything organized. This will record the minutes, notes, documents, and transcripts, and will be very effective in governing the organization while remaining organized and saving time. Another recommendation that I have considered to be beneficial for how the organization can be governed is to develop clear policies for volunteers when helping the organization, so volunteers and others are aware of the responsibilities and policies involved to maintain order and accountability, ensures smooth operations, provides protection for both the nonprofit and volunteers, as well as fostering a positive and safe environment for the volunteers' experiences. Therefore, creating a handbook designed specifically for volunteers that includes safety procedures and protocols, code of conduct, and a confidentiality agreement should be available in their handbook and on them at all times, outlining the main policies and responsibilities. These expectations communicated clearly will prevent any issues in the future and provide them with answers that they may need. Recommendations for how the organization can be managed is to keep up to date with the financial budget and spending of the organization due to the limited resources and funding available. Therefore, creating a regular review of the financial accounts would be very effective in managing the organization and ensuring that the funding available is not being overspent. A weekly review is highly recommended to note down the spending of the organization in a finances book to access if needed at a later time and ensure that they are remaining financially stable. Keeping on top of their books can help to determine if they need to do another fundraising event as well to ensure that they can keep their services going. Another recommendation for how the organization can be managed is by creating a system solely for the volunteers to understand the volunteers of the organization and their schedules, to be aware of when they are available to volunteer at the organization. This can manage the ability to always have help on hand so during busy times they don't feel understaffed as they don't have staff. I heavily enjoyed my experience with Idaho Animal Rescue Network, and I look forward to continuing my experience with other nonprofits in the future. Thank you for listening.